It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 20th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have sermons in the sky, QNA Thursday, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? I hope you guys are having an amazing and awesome week. We're already on Thursday. Don't forget, not just today, but every single week we have Q&A Thursday, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, leave a like and comment for today's video to build our community. I'm just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive, so let's get up and support each other each and every day. So this week's Sunday message title is, You are a living person only if you are united with a living person, and it is God's history that splits. Whew. All right, guys, it is Thursday, and I'm recording this on Thursday. It is 2:30 a.m. It's been a long day. Actually, I started recording this audio at the airport around 1 a.m. I was waiting for the last member to come in from America, and I picked them up, and I got home around 2 and then took a shower and got ready, and now it's already 2:30. This should be up in the next 3 hours. So, yeah, it's been a long day. Okay, let me tell you why. And this kind of makes me feel better because you guys know me and you guys have seen my Instagram. I have tons of car trouble, like the radiator burst, the pipe burst, the flat tire, this and that. Like even last week, my tire, the car I'm using, the tire went flat. I had to replace 2 tires and stuff like that too. So it's been pretty crazy. Okay, but what happened is I realized it's not just me, but it's almost like every foreigner. So there have been it's been 2 days since the Americans came, and the first day was crazy because they arrived at like 1 p.m. and it takes about less than an hour to drive to the Airbnb, right? Guess what time they got to the Airbnb? 6 p.m. Right? So I think I told you a little bit about this before, but it was like 6 p.m. No, actually, I haven't told you, I don't think. Right? It took them that long. Okay? So I'm like going, oh my gosh, why did it take so long? They had they rented the car from Terminal 1, but they arrived in Terminal 2, so I had to take a shuttle bus over. There was some issue with the insurance, and then they had like there's a bunch of different things that went wrong, and they went out to a gas station, then had to come all the way back to the airport to change money and stuff like that. It took them 5 hours to get to the Airbnb, and they were exhausted, okay? So that was the first day. Second day, I'm supposed to be, which is Wednesday, I'm supposed to be doing my podcast in the morning so I can get it early done, and then, we'll hang out, go sightseeing, and then have Wednesday service together and stuff, okay? I'm in contact with them in the morning around 9, 10 a.m. They're eating breakfast, and then all of a sudden, it's like, we have a flat tire. I was like, what? So they had tire troubles. Okay, so it's not just me, guys. They had tire troubles. They had a nail inside their tire and they were losing air. So, I couldn't finish my podcast. I got all my stuff ready. I went out to meet them, help them to go to a car place where they can fix the tire. And, the great thing about it was they fixed the tire in less than 10 minutes and it only cost 10 ringgit, which is like what? It's like $2.50 or something along that line. It's really, really cheap. So then we went to go eat together, and then they went to go pick up someone from the airport, and me and some other people went to the shopping mall, and then we went to like sightseeing and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, when am I going to record my podcast? Now, it's getting close to Wednesday service time. And also I have to go pick up someone else from the airport, and they come at midnight. Okay. So, everyone's exhausted, still have jet lag. So we decided to have Wednesday service on our own. And guess who preached? So it was pretty wild, guys. There was two pastors there, me and someone else, and they're like, no, like, and the pastor's from headquarters, and she's like, no, you got to do it. I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't prepare anything. It's like, well, this is impromptu, and this is just what we have to deal with right now. So we're like, okay. So we sang praise, we prayed together, and then it's been a long time. I just preached the Wednesday message, and we were just sitting around a table. I was preaching, and it was really amazing because I haven't preached in such a long time in front of people. And remember, I haven't practiced anything because, I've never seen the script until that point. And it was almost like I was reading it, preaching it, and also listening to it at the same time. And I preached. We did 10 minutes of prayer for Providence and for Sunstein, and then we had a time of prayer. After the prayer, me and some of the younger kids went out to where did we go? We went to like the street food, food street, and like this is where tons of foreigners are, and we stayed out there till pretty late. And then I went over to the airport, and I picked up the last member around 12:45. No, around 1. And then I drove back to the Airbnb got there like 1:40 or something along that line, and then I drove home by 2 kind of thing. So it's been such a long day, but even though it's a little bit late, I know that this is something that I really, really love doing, and it's something where I don't feel like it's a burden, even though it's 2:30 in the morning at the moment. But here I am, guys, and I wanted to tell you that story because I want people to know that car trouble is not just Sky. It is every foreigner who has a car here. Okay, so it's every foreigner. So it's not just me, it's everyone. Okay, so don't think that it's only me and I'm receiving judgment. This car trouble has already happened to other American members over here too. So, yeah, all right. Oh, I went to watch a movie too, and I saw a great movie. Do you guys know the movie Inside Out 2? It's better than Inside Out 1. It's totally, oh my gosh, so relatable. It's so relatable and real. It made me think about those times when I was immature, like in middle school, just finding myself, learning about whether I'm, like trying to please other people and trying to keep myself. It was like trying to make friends. Like it was good. It was really like, I was watching it and like, wow, I was totally like that in high school. And it was just too relatable, too real, but really amazing how they made it. And I would say, yeah, it's better than the first one. To me, it felt like they just got a bunch of psychologists, and these psychologists got together and just made the movie because it's so real. Like the way they portray the emotions and what people really like, and what young people are thinking when they're immature, it's so perfect. And I would recommend, if you can, take the SS to it. Take the SS take the SS to that movie. It's so good, and I think all of them will definitely relate to it, right? So yeah, that's something that that's a couple things I've been doing with the members over here. And this week, this week's about Sunstein talking about the second gen, right? Sunstein talking about second gen and the parents, and I found it very amazing because I'm here in constant discussion with the second gen, and then on top of it, like even when I picked up a member from the airport, they're also a blessed family parent. And it's so incredible that this week's message, I'm able to listen to both sides. Like we had almost an hour drive back from the airport to the Airbnb, and the conversation was about raising second gen because that's this week's message. And I found it just such a revelation to hear what the parents go through. And I know there's a lot of times when you see second gen and they may not be that good. And especially for like the blessed family parents, there's a ton of pressure. And there's a ton of pressure. And on top of it, a lot of people are just parenting for the first time. They're first time parents, first time BF, first time raising children in this history. It's not easy. And just the open and honest discussion we had was really, I found it to be very amazing. And I would say it's kind of interesting. All the second gens I'm meeting right now, I've known all their parents before they got married. All of them. Like even Pastor David Baker, I've known him before he got married too, right? And when I talk to the second gen, it's really hopeful. Like second gen doing really well gives me so much hope. One of the second gen, I was in the car. I was driving in the car to the airport on another day, and just the questions that were given to me, I thought they were really powerful because it wasn't just like one of those, hey, what do you think about the Bible means about this? No, it was really about faith, and it was really practical questions. Like I'll tell you, one of the questions that this second gen gave to me was like he's learning to have faith, but he also says sometimes he doesn't feel it. He has that and like for instance, he's talking about when he misses pre-dawn, he doesn't feel so bad about it, but then feels bad that he doesn't feel bad about it, and he's trying to reason it out. And it was a real conversation. We discussed, and we were talking about this. It's like, yeah, it's true. And I asked him like, well, why do you think you don't feel that it's so bad? And the reasoning behind it is like, well, if you think about it, we have pre-dawn like so many times a week. So we're bound to make mistakes. We're bound to miss it or come late to it, right? And it's kind of true, right? To be that consistent for the rest of your life. So at first I was talking to him like, okay, so let's just pretend you're meeting someone. And he says, he said to me, don't you think it's reasonable that if you're doing it this much, like sometimes you're going to miss it. And sometimes you went to sleep really late. You had school, you had this or you had that. And it's understandable and it's reasonable that you were late or you didn't go to pre-dawn. And I said, okay, so let's think about it in reality. Like you're actually like a real relationship with someone. If you're meeting someone and you're late, but the reasoning why you're late is reasonable and understandable. Let's just say big accident on the freeway and you're late 2 hours, or super traffic, or just some things like, I don't know, like animals are loose on the freeway. So, like there's a bunch of these crazy things that are happening. Okay. And let's just say you're late 2 hours. Very understandable, very reasonable. But when you go to meet this person and you see that they've been waiting for you for 2 hours, even if it's reasonable and even if it's understandable, wouldn't you still feel bad that they waited 2 hours? You'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. This happened here. This happened. I know, but I can't believe you waited 2 hours for me. Even if it was reasonable, you'd still feel bad because you were late, right? And then we were discussing. It's like, well, but pre-dawn is every day. Like, it's not reality that someone's waiting to meet with you every single day, is it? Like, you're gonna miss every once in a while, isn't that true? And I was like, well, if you think about it, there are people that have expectations to meet you every day, right? Or like at least 5 times a week. And then he's like, who? I was like, well, what about your boss? If you get a job, they expect you to go to work on time 5 times a week, some jobs 6 times a week. So there are people that aren't even that close to you, but because of your relationship, you're expected to be there on time 5 times a week. And if some people, if you're late too many times, you get fired. So it is reasonable that some people can expect you to be on time to work every single day. And when you think about it, when people do go to work, they're usually on time every single day, right? And he's like, oh, that's true. There are some people that have expectation to see you every day. And then he said, we were talking, I was like, let's move it to an even deeper relationship, which is lovers. When it comes to expectation of lovers, if you really, really, truly, deeply love someone, don't you want to see them every day? Like when you get married, are you going to be like, oh, don't come home today? Oh, go to your mom's house and don't come home. No. You expect to see them every day. And if you truly, deeply love them, then you're excited to meet them every single day. And we were continually talking about this, and he's like, oh, that makes sense. Oh yeah, this makes sense too. And I wasn't telling him that, oh, like don't be late, and if you're late, you're messed up kind of thing. It was more of, it's like, yeah, we just got to be able to put our relationship with God in a very realistic way. Now, realistic doesn't mean, hey, it's understandable when we miss, especially when you went 1,000 days in a row. No, I'm not talking about that. Realistic meaning, if it was a real person, would you feel the same way? Because sometimes we don't feel it as real because God is invisible, and sometimes we don't feel him. So those are the times we're like, is it really that? And we're kind of like trying to think to ourselves if it's really, like, do we really need to feel bad for something? But if you put it into a real relationship that said someone was really waiting for you, or someone you truly love too, yeah, you'd want to see them every day also. And as we were continuing with this talk, it was just interesting because we were talking, and he was like, oh, but we all have different wants. And I was like, that is true. But if people have different wants, they're always going to argue. But when two people are madly and deeply in love with each other, they don't think about what they want. They're thinking about what the other person wants. And then there's always compromise, and there's not going to be as much fighting. So it was quite interesting to go through these conversations with the second gens, talking with, I'll tell you later when we go into the QNA Thursday, because there's a question about parenting and stuff like that too. And I'm going to tell you straight up right now, I cannot tell you how difficult parenting is. I just can't. I can't tell you how difficult it is. And I can't even pretend to tell you how difficult parenting is. Because some people will say to me, well, isn't it like spiritual children? And I'd be like, no way. And why would people, and someone will say to me, well, why isn't it like spiritual children? Isn't spiritual children the same? Like you'll have the same shimjung as someone who has real children? And I'd be like, no. Because those spiritual children don't come home with you. They don't scream at you all day. They don't hate you or sometimes or dislike you. It's completely different. A spiritual child goes back to their own home. You have your own privacy. You go to your own room. A physical child lives with you. That's completely different. You see like 90% of their life. Spiritual children, you see 10% of their life, only when they're at church and only when you meet them. It's completely different. So I cannot pretend to tell you what it's like to be a real parent. And I would say being a blessed family, there is even added pressure because you're expecting your children to be good, knowing the word, knowing the truth and stuff like that too. And it's not that easy. And, when we hear the message like what we hear this week, sometimes it's hard to be empathetic because we don't, like a lot of us aren't parents. Sometimes we have parents that might be a little bit too hard on us, or we may think that they're too into providence or whatever it is. But when Sunseam gives out that deep heart about parenting and such, I think one of the things that we forget a lot is we really, really forget, or we don't really understand how hard it is to be a blessed family parent. There is pressure, there is expectation, and it's not easy to be managing that and being a regular parent at the same time, right? So I thought it was very interesting because I'll tell you this one thing. There's one thing I noticed because now, like for the last 2, 3 days, I've just been hanging out with Westerners, only Westerners. And being with Westerners, it is so transparent. What does that mean? Like when I'm in Asia, it's kind of because of the culture and because of the way things are, you can't really talk about everything you want to, right? Not every subject. There's always taboo subjects. You can't talk about this. You can't talk about that. And people are gonna, it's just gonna happen. People are gonna like, it's a different culture, so they're gonna be like, no, you can't say that. But I've been with Americans for the last 2, 3 days. Westerners. We talk about everything. Everything. It is so open. Like these are subjects that I don't think I could talk to everyone about in Asia. I just can't. And it's like when sometimes when it's the subject might be a little bit too like, oh, maybe this is too sensitive. You might have to look around and see if anyone else is listening. That kind of thing. But no, with Westerners, with like the mothers and their children present too, we talk about everything. Everything pops up. Everything is free. It's all transparent. And even like these, 21-year-old, 25-year-old, 24-year-olds were all in the conversation. And because I'm a Westerner, for me, the conversation is so freeing because it's the same culture as me, right? It's not saying it's better than the Eastern culture. It's just that's my culture. So having those conversations is super freeing for me. I can just talk. We all discuss. We all give input, and I would say it was like I said, it's very freeing. I'll tell you this. Think about this. There's career department. There is campus. Just graduated, and then there's like the mother is there with their child. It's me, right? And it even gets like we're talking about blessed family because I knew the mother before she became blessed family, right? I was there for her blessing, and the topic of blessing just came up, and we just talked about it. Even the mother's like, yeah. I was like, oh, she got blessed. This, and this. I was Sunsy's bodyguard. Like, oh, we're just laughing about it and stuff, and it was super honest and really funny talk. Like we were talking about what's the real preparation? What's the real preparation for blessing? And we're like going, of course, number one is spiritual. Of course, number one is making your character and all these other different things. But we even got into physical prep. Yeah. And it was just open. It's like, oh, this makes sense. Right? Like this is how honest it was. Remember, there's like 2 girls there and a guy there. All 3 of them are not even in the blessing. They're not even close to it yet, right? Or like they're not going to be for the next several years. And we talked about physical prep, just being honest. And we're like, I was like, it's like, well, for guys are very physical and we are stimulated by our eyes. So if I were to be honest, if a girl wants to prepare for blessing, one of the physical preparations would be exercise. Just naturally, I'll be like, yeah, it'd be exercise because we guys are about their eyes, girls are about their ears, and they were like going, yeah. Then what do guys prepare? We're like, you got to save some money, right? And those would be like 2 big things that we're just talking about, open, and then everyone gets involved. Like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, this makes sense. Oh, yeah, because that's the way that's the way the guys think here, right? Oh, that's the way this thinks here, right? It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And if you think about it, in other countries, it'd be so taboo. Like, oh, you can't talk about this to people who aren't even going to go to the blessing yet, kind of thing, right? Some people might even be offended by our conversation when we say something like, no, guys are stimulated by their eyes, so girls prepare by exercising. And the mother's like, absolutely. That's just, you have to know what the guys are like. And then it's like, does that mean guys are too shallow? It's like, no, you just got to understand what guys are like. And it was just really interesting because it's so open, transparent, and free. Just comes out. No one's offended. No one's thinking, oh, you can't say that, right? So I found it to be very different just being with Westerners and stuff. And, you know, for me, like I said, I'm just from the Western side. You guys are from the East. Some of you guys are from the East. It's just very different. And some things are just not talked about. And I'm just going to say, remember, I'm talking about only from the Western perspective. Okay, the Western perspective. Okay, from my Western perspective, and I'm only speaking from a Western perspective. I'm not saying, this is wrong or bad. I'm just saying from the Western perspective, it is odd, right? That there are some things we just can't talk about when they're quite normal in the world. Marriage is a normal topic just in the world. So for me as a Westerner, I'd be like, oh, why can't you talk about this? That doesn't make sense, right? Just from the Western point of view. I even for me, remember like last year when it came to 2023 and all the news going on, Westerners like, I want to know. We all want to know. That's just the Western perspective. But it's like, why can't we talk about this? What are you hiding, right? And this is just, that's why for me, some things just bother me. I'm like, why would you hide that? And the thing that would bother me the most, and this is a thing that I would discuss too with like the people higher up. If you're going to only give certain information, my question is, who gets to decide what we can and cannot talk about? Who gets to decide that? Who gets to decide what information about the trial or what information about this or that can we talk about? Because what if it doesn't fit the Western culture? What if it doesn't fit the Eastern culture? Like, are we doing a one size fits all that, oh, we can't say it to anyone? But it's like, no, because each culture is different. The way people think are very, very different, that it's definitely going to come down to each country deciding on their own, right? But if it comes down to one top group that is the one deciding what we can hear and we can't, that would be something that I would definitely very much discuss, because I don't think that one group would know every culture really well, right? Now, here's where I'm going to talk very personal, like a personal opinion too, is if someone says to me, well, what if Sunsim says you can't do this, you can't do this, right? There would be two questions I would genuinely ask with a curious heart, not doubting, curious heart. What was the report about? Was it reported on behalf of everyone in every country and every culture? Or was it just for your country or just your church? Or was there an assumption made that, oh, this is going to make a lot of people stumble, so no one should listen to this? You know what I mean? Because one thing Sansim says absolutely is reporting is a human responsibility, and how you report makes a difference. So, when it comes down to human responsibility, if Sunsim says something, and as someone who's from a different culture or different country, I would definitely listen to it. Definitely, I would listen to it at first, because that's it's like, okay, this is what was said. Boom, it's done. Okay. However, I would also then explain and report to Sunsim about the country I'm in, the culture, and what would be better for the people in that country and the culture there too. What works and what doesn't, right? Like I said, once again, Westerners particularly want transparency, like full transparency, and Easterners want to protect and not have as much transparency because it's about protection, right? Who is right? There is no right or wrong, because it depends on which country you're in. However, I think one thing that you cannot stop, we're living in an information age where information is quick and fast. The world has become a village. Everyone communicates as quick, like so quickly, faster than light. You can't stop someone calling someone from another country. You can't stop them from getting information. You can't stop someone going on the internet and checking things out for themselves. It's just the way it is. And just my personal thought is, if this is the way how fast information is moving in the world, it means that, if you know this one fact, that information travels quickly and fast, the one thing I think any leader cannot deny is that information is ready available at all times. Everyone knows someone from Korea. Everyone knows someone from another country, and you can easily get the information, which means even if you wanted to protect and hide information, you can't. It is impossible. It just is. And if someone says, hey, you can't look at this, basically what's going to happen is people are going to look at it. They're just not going to say they did. They don't want to get in trouble. They're going to look at it. They're just going to say they didn't do it, right? So, as a leader myself, we're all doing our best. We're all doing the best of our capabilities. But in the end, with the information age we're living in right now, you may think that people don't know, but most likely they know. They just don't say it. And I think it'll be a little bit naive to think that no one knows. Don't you think? You know what I mean? So, everyone has a contact in another country. Everyone knows someone who knows someone from another country. Everyone has access to the internet and Google Translate. It's just the reality of what the world is going through right now. So this is my personal opinion, remember, from a Western perspective. And if you're from the East and you want to disagree, I don't think it's about disagreements. It's just about, in my culture, I would prefer it this way. Why? And then you just give your personal feeling, right? Disagreeing would probably be if you're a Westerner like me and say, well, I disagree with you. I don't think Westerners want transparency. Like, that would be a disagreement. But if we're from a different culture, East and the West, I think Easterners can just say, oh, that's interesting. The West thinks this way. Oh, that's interesting. And these are good points. Probably for myself as an Easterner, I prefer it this way. So I don't think it's going to be a disagreement between the East and the West. It's just different. The only disagreements would be someone from the West who disagrees with what I'm saying. That would be a disagreement because they'd be like, well, I'm from the West too, and I don't like this. Or, well, actually, that wouldn't be a proper disagreement because that would be a specific situation to a general thing that I'm talking about, right? Talking generally. And I would say, yeah, if you're a Westerner right now, would you agree with me generally that Westerners want transparency more than things hidden? And then in the East, right, generally, do you think that Easterners are more protective and hide things more, right? And remember, we're not talking about you as a personal individual. We're talking about generally speaking, right? So yeah, I think it's something that's very, very interesting. And I think it's something that that deserves a lot of discussion and topic, even at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? So I hope you guys it's food for thought. And I hope it's something that you guys can gain a lot from too. But of course, we do have Q&A Thursday today. So before we get into the Q&A Thursday, let's get into the first music break of the day.
Hurting, there's nothing that's quite worth it. So you call for help again.
right, so let's get into today's Q&A Thursday, and we have three pretty big questions. So let's get right into it. The first question is once again, about the book of Jeremiah. So the person wrote, I finished reading Jeremiah, and I'm a bit confused to why God allowed the Babylonians to destroy Judah, but then had the Babylonians destroyed themselves. Not sure. So this is the question is, okay, so why did God allow Babylon to destroy Judah, but then Babylon themselves get judged after? Okay. So for myself, I don't know if I have enough context to this question, but it seems like it's a bit confusing that God would allow them to come and destroy Judah. So it's like God gave permission to do it. But then right after, God's like, oh, how dare you destroy Judah and Israel? Okay, I'm going to judge you now. You know what I mean? It almost feels like God is manipulating the situation. That's kind of what the context of this question kind of feels like. Like, why would God let them do something bad and then punish them for doing something bad after that? Okay, that's kind of what the feeling is. If God lets them do what is evil, does that mean that it's God doing it? So then if that's God doing it, then why would God eventually punish this nation for doing something that he allowed? Okay, so I would say that this question could be difficult, but it's also simple at the same time, right? It's complex and simple at the same time. So the simple answer is everyone is paid according to what they've done. As simple as it gets, right? So if you do evil, you're going to pay for it. And I think one of the things that makes it confusing is when the Bible says God allows it, God permits it. Okay? So you're like, oh, God permitted it. So why would he permit it and then judge them after? And then it's like, well, it's true. They did do evil, so they are getting paid for what they've done. But then God was the one that allowed it to happen. Okay? The second thing you have to realize is God allowing something to happen does not mean he made them do it. And this becomes a little bit more complex. Evil is happening in the world all the time. So the question I give to you is, when does God allow bad things to happen? And I would say there's plenty of reasons. For instance, number one is God allows bad things to happen because of love. Well, what does that mean? Well, there's free will, absolute free will. Now, when it comes to someone like Israel, right? Israel, the people, the chosen people of God, okay? When it comes to Israel, the chosen people of God, when would God allow evil to happen to them? Well, we've heard this many times throughout the Bible, and this makes absolute sense. It's when they do things that are sinful and they're being judged for their sins, right? So if they keep sinning and they reach the limit of sin, then God has no choice but to allow certain things to happen to them when before he was protecting them, because that's fair. It's not fair if you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and you've done everything right, and then God just keeps allowing bad things to happen. It's when you don't. This is when you deserve it. They deserve what? They did bad things. They went against God. They stopped believing in God. And that's why these things happen. It's like God's judgment. God's judgment is either directly God judging you or God taking his hands off and allowing the people who were trying to get you before, where God was protecting you in the past, but now because of your sin that reached its full capacity, has now kind of put God's hands off, right? And God's allowing it to happen because it's fair. Israel was being judged. They turned away from God, which means God allowing it to happen is fair and just. They deserve to be judged. So Babylon at that time was already warring and taking over many places, and then they wanted Judah, which was protected which would be protected if they followed God, but they were sinning. Now, after the judgment is over, right, where God's, they have paid the price for their punishment, Babylon now also has to pay for their sins, right? So, it's not so much like God allowed it, so why did he judge them? No, God allowed it because of sin. It was Israel's own doing. But just because God allowed Babylon to do it doesn't mean that they're allowed to do wicked and evil things, right? They're already considered on the wicked side, right? So then they have to get judged for what they've done right after. So when you look at it in this way, you guys got to kind of understand that when God allows something, it's not like just like God sitting there like just picking and choosing like, nah, well, maybe today I'll allow some evil to happen. No, it doesn't work like that. And there's multiple reasons why evil happens to you. Multiple. Number one, sometimes, Sunseam says this, sometimes you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And since there's free will also, bad things happen because you're in the wrong place. Like what? Like an example would be, imagine you're dressed really sexy as a girl, and then you're walking down a dark alley that's got a ton of crime in it, and then you get mugged or something bad happens to you. You shouldn't be there anyways. Do you know what I mean? Like that is something where you're already in a bad area. Another reason why Sunseam says bad things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, is because of the innocent bystander, right? Sometimes there's a drive-by shooting and innocent people are shot, right? And that has to do with free will. And then last but not least, it's the one we talked about, which is God, people are being judged. So there's multiple reasons why bad things are happening to people. And Sunseem even said, if there is ever a time where someone doesn't deserve something bad happening to them, like an innocent bystander, God will repay them with good in the end after they die. They'll still be repaid because, they didn't deserve it kind of thing, right? So this is why we have to realize that this is why sometimes bad things happen and they get judged after. They're still considered bad. They still did a bad thing. It's just that they're being judged and God just took his hands off and these wicked people were now able to take over Israel. So that is the reasoning behind that. Second question is very interesting. It's about second gen because of this week's message. So this is a very interesting question because it's about how do we raise a second gen properly? And they're asking what my opinion is. The Sunday message talks about the importance of second gen, and you can really feel it in God's Sunseam's heart about the second gen. So how do we raise children the best, right? And like I said, I'm not a parent, and if anyone was not a parent, I don't think you could fully comprehend or understand the complexity and how difficult it really is to be a parent. It's not that easy, right? Like even when I was talking to this parent, two children, and I was talking to them on the way back from the airport. I was telling them about this one blessed family that I know, that they were looked down upon because they allowed their children to be very free. They listened to the word if they wanted to. If they didn't want to, they didn't have to. And they're second gens, right? And it's like, yeah, you can do what you want. And I was saying that parents would look down upon this family or these parents because they were like, what? They're 16 and they don't know the 30 lessons yet? What kind of father is this kind of thing, right? And when I was looking at, and it's very interesting because now that the children are a little bit older, they are learning the word on their own, not because the parents told them to. It's their choice, right? And I think that's a big thing is choice is a huge thing. Of course, when you're a baby, you're taken to church because there's no choice, right? There's no choice when you're a child. You are completely dependent on your parents. You can't just live at home by yourself, right? Parents take the Milky Way to church and everything else, right? And, as the children grow up, they're going to start to have their own mind, right? And I think that's one of the big things is choice. And I'm going to tell you something that I thought was very powerful was, I was talking to this parent. I said, "Yeah, this parent is so good. This parent gave freedom to their kids. They learn the word on their own now, even though they're like 16, 18, or 19, whatever it is. But they have such an amazing relationship with their parents. The children parents have amazing relationship. It's enviable when I look at it. They know secrets. They talk to each other about everything." And when I was telling this parent about this blessed family who treats their children like this, interestingly, this parent said to me, "Man, if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, whatever it is, I would think the same thing, that this parent was bad, not teaching their children 30 lessons, not doing this, not doing that. But then this person confessed and said, but you know what? If I took all my realizations of how I raised my kids in the past until now, I would think, wow, I think that's the right way to do it, right? And it's something that it's a learning curve. And a lot of times in countries that are smaller, your blessed families are all they're going through parenting for the first time, but not only parenting, they're like the first generation of blessed families who are uncertain how to raise their children too in providence. Do you know what I mean? And I would say that if your children are still like not even in middle school yet, then you haven't really hit the hard times, because the kids just want to be with the parents. They love the parents. They follow the parents everywhere they go. It's when they hit those teenage years is where things start to, like, havoc and chaos is created, right? So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a choice that we have to really think about carefully, right? That we have to allow children to have choice. And this is just from me talking to some of the parents and stuff like that too of second gen. And I would say this, in the end, children have their own choice in the end, which means, think about this. You're going to have second gen that are raised amazingly, but still leave providence. And then you're going to have the others, the exact opposite of those that are not raised well, but then they turn out well in providence. So in the end, there's going to be that personal choice that's involved too, right? And I would say that the two biggest parts when it comes to raising second gen is the parents' responsibility and the church's responsibility, and they both have different roles. Like, one of the things that I remember Sanseep talked about when it comes to Milky Way, what does Sanseep say about Milky Way? Sanseep actually said about Milky Way is this. Milky Way they're so young. It's not about teaching them so many truths and the 30 lessons. They have to learn it inside out. It's just making church fun. That's the key. Truth isn't the number one thing. If anything, Sanseep says, when children go to church, the feeling they have to have, we're talking Milky Way, the feeling they have to have is, church, I want to go back to church. I want to go to church. Where you talk to your kids and we're saying we're going to church, they'll be like, yay, let's go to church. Like, that's the feeling they need to have. It's not about truth. It's not about they have to learn every piece and every truth about it. Why? Because they're just kids. It's going to be probably like 80% fun and 20% truth. It's going to be maybe even 90% fun. Kids just need to feel that church is so fun and they want to be there, and that's the memory they need to have as they come back from church, and as being a Milky Way, like, wow, I love church. Church is so cool. Church is so fun. That's what it should be. And that's what Sanseep said. Right? Even when Sanseep talks about pre-dawn, yeah, I could bring in the pre-dawn. And Sanseep's like, yeah, let them fall asleep. It's okay. Right? Like, kids, we have to, for the Milky Way, they just need to have that feeling that church is fun. And of course, after Milky Way, they get into middle school and high school, and it's slowly, the fun is still there, but it slowly goes down and truth becomes more and more important. Little bit at a time, not like you're full out learning the 30 lessons 9 times a year kind of thing, right? And, after Milky Way, this is where they're beginning to learn more deeply and really well about God, the love, right? Relationships, and they're still kids. They can't be dragged through the mud. They need retreats. They need sports. They need food. They need fun, right? Everything that makes it a place where they can grow and learn together, right? Where they can have their friends at church, where they're connected to church as a number one thing, right? So, think about it. Teenage years, go watch Inside Out 2. It's the years when there's a ton of hormonal change. You hit puberty, tons of changes happening in their life. People want to be popular. Their image matters. Friends become, more important outside of church or whatever it is, right? And we need to be very sensitive to this and know that it's going to be fun. It's got to be a place where they can invite their friends to. And, The kids are slowly getting smarter, more independent, and we need to be able to help them deal with these issues in life. And that's something I believe, which is super important for these kids when it comes to, which I think is very important, is a youth service. I think a youth service is very important. I think it's absolutely necessary to have a youth service, and it should be different than the main service. I think that's my personal opinion because kids are different, and I've seen it in the former faith church where I was at too. You needed a different service. You needed a completely different service, a different speaker, and different way of doing it also. But of course, I also understand that they need to get used to seeing Sunstein preach also, which means that maybe once a month they watch Sunstein's preach or something along that line. But I think a youth service is very, very important. Now, campus is the golden fishing ground, which means that the importance of campuses, this is when they should be running. They're out there meeting people, they're evangelizing, running with the church together, learning how to lecture, all these other different things. And I think it should all accumulate to that point where at campus they're running. And parents, I already talked about parents. I think it's the hardest job. I'll never understand it fully because I don't have my own children, right? I don't even know if I can say anything bad about parents. It's just hard. And like I said, if you're not a parent yourself, like raising second gen, there's a big difference in the expectation of a regular parent in the world that's just trying to raise their kids to be smart and have a good job and stuff. And inside Providence's Blessed Family second gen, where there is an expectation of what these children are supposed to end up being like. I think it's something where we have to have great conversations. And it's hard for us to really, really understand parents at that level. I just think, for me, I think it's impossible for me. I really do. Like I said before, spiritual children, physical children, complete opposites. Complete. They're not the same. They're a completely different level, right? Parents are worried about working, mortgages, their house, upkeep, maintenance, their in-laws, their parents who are getting older and older, money, right? Their children, schooling. It's just too much. And then on top of it, there's so many other things that, we have to be those that are very empathetic to the parents too. And I would say one of the best examples I have seen, and I would say one of the things I would say would be the most important part, and I think, and Sunstein talked about this before too. He said the most important part, I don't know if he said this part, but I would say the relationship with your children and the parents is the most important part. It's not did they learn the 30 lessons that I need to teach them all these things? No, it's the relationship. I think that's most important. Because one thing Sunstein did talk about in the past is if, there comes a point where if a parent and child are arguing, there comes a point where the argument gets so serious that they could actually, like the relationship between the parent and the child could be severely altered or hurt. And then from that point on, the kids don't trust the parents, or they feel they have these negative feelings towards their parents or whatever like that, right? And once that happens, then the kids will not really communicate. They won't say all the things that are going on. However, if the parents have a good relationship with the children, and even if they're not going to church, they're still going to talk. They're still going to have a great relationship. And the most important part about this relationship is that when the time comes for those children to come back to Providence, they can talk to their parents about it. Right? Hey, I know that there's some second gens that are coming back after not being at church for like 10 years. And that's recent too. So when you think about that, it's quite amazing that this is what is going on. And I hope it's something that that we can be very empathetic to, learn from them, have discussions with them too, and just know that if you get into the zone of they have to learn, how come the second gen don't know anything? How come the second gen don't know the word? No, that's not the key. Second gen, as they're growing up, they need fun. Second gen, as they grow up, they need the relationship with people in the church. And they're gonna need when they finally come to their own independence, they're gonna realize and they're gonna have these people to talk to and the people that they trust. No one needs to know all the 30 lessons by 13. Who says by 13? Who says by 15? Who says by 17? What's most important to us is that these second gen realize the word deeply, and they become strong members of this history and possibly even leaders of this history in the end, right? Shouldn't that be the most important part rather than they need to know everything by 15 years old? No, it's not like that. So I think it's something that we do have to think about very, very carefully. And if we don't know it well, this is where a lot of people do end up with regrets. Okay? Let's get into the last question for today. And this last question is very interesting. This is the question here. It says that it's about generational sin. So generational sin is being passed down. For instance, Abraham didn't split the flocks, leading to the 400 years of slavery. Right? They didn't split the birds. Right? So now we are in this history, complete testament. We are bearing the consequences of our ancestors' sin too. Right? Right. So are we bearing the sins of our ancestors? And sometimes we will suffer, but we won't know why. That means we need to be aware about this so that we can repent and get out of it. So if we don't do well now, then the next gen will bear the consequences of our sins. Or if we don't raise our level now, the next person we evangelize or the next generation will be harder. And I would say yes or no. So the first thing that we need to know is when it comes to generational sin, when you come into this history, it ends, right? So that's one of the things that we learn. When you learn about the lesson in the 30 lessons called sin and repentance, the generational sin ends when you come into the new history. So you're not going to be paying for the price of your generations before, right? Because it ends when you come into this history, okay? Now, what are we paying for? We're going to be paying for the generational sin that happens while the man of mission is alive. For instance, the people at the time of Jesus, it was the chosen people, those very people who were waiting for Jesus, the Messiah. They were the ones who caused that sin. So that generational sin, while the Messiah is alive, of killing the Messiah, passed on to everyone else because they lived without the physical Messiah when they could have been living together with Jesus, right? So those are the generational sins that are happening right now, right, in our generation or when this new history started. And those generational sins are accumulating and we're dealing with it. When it comes to us individually, I would say it's a little bit more difficult to say that we're going to be causing a lot of sins to the people to the next generation. Now, if you are a blessed family and you have a sin, then of course you're passing that on to your children, and it's going to happen at an individual and family level. It's not going to happen at the worldwide level because those generational sins, when it comes to, like, say, providence-wide or worldwide, that sin must be done by someone at that level. If it's just an individual, then they're most likely only going to affect their family or those that are directly around them. But those generational sins are not going to affect other people outside of that group that they affect, right? So I would say that we're paying for our ancestors, which is this generation of the former faith, the chosen people, the people in the New Testament time that are waiting for the Messiah, and we pay the price because they couldn't fulfill it and they couldn't accept the man of mission of this time period. But anything before that is cut and broken off when we come into the new history. So I hope that makes some sense. Okay? All right. Okay, so that's kind of what that was the last question there. So I hope it's something that you guys understand and it helps you guys out here too. And if you have any more questions, go ahead. Always feel free to bring those questions out to me also. Yes, it is already 3:30. Whew. Either way. So let's get into, before we get into Sermons in the Sky, let's get into the final music break of the day.
Y'all ready for this?
Shown you love me with things you've given. You know I love you. I'm already singing about the stories that we have together. It's here forever. It will only get better from now on. Everything that you've given, I'm so grateful. Let me show you my love, 'cause I'm so thankful. Let us dance on the streets. Let us rock to the beat. Show me how you feel about me. Watch me move my feet. You're always on my mind. I can feel it in my heart. Everything's alright, 'cause you're not so far. Please take my hand and love me through a dance. I wanna show you my love, so give me a chance. We have stories of joy and pain, but that's okay, 'cause that's like dancing in the wind. And I will say it again, I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. We can move to the beat, our love so complete. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. We can groove to the beat, our love so complete. You've shown your loving, you gave me a chance. And with the mistakes I've made, I've never fallen away from you. Though times are rough, it'll be okay, 'cause I am never, ever, ever gonna leave you astray. Hey, thunderstorms are a little scary, but with you, I won't feel weary. Even on cloudy days when skies are gray, my heart's a cave, the sun will shine through the rain today. Let us dance on the streets. Let us rock to the beat. Show me how you feel about me. Watch me move my feet. You're always on my mind. I can feel it in my heart. Everything's alright, 'cause you're not so far. Please take my hand and love me through a dance. I wanna show you my love, so give me a chance. We have stories of joy and pain, but that's okay, 'cause that's like dancing in the wind. And I will say it again, I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. We can move to the beat, our love so complete. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. I'ma dance with you. We can groove to the beat, our love so complete. I'ma dance with you.
Okay, so let's get into the final segment for today, which is Sermons in the Sky. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is 3:30, and we've already gone for over an hour for this episode, and I am about to completely fade out into darkness because I am exhausted. So I know some people are looking forward to Sermons in the Sky. I was looking forward to Sermons in the Sky, but because this day started so early and there was a flat tire, everything else, I haven't even prepared a Sermons in the Sky. And, I was thinking about it this whole time, like, what should I talk about here? But I also realized it's getting closer and closer to 4 a.m., which is time for prayer. And then, of course, I have to upload this so that this can go into... what am I talking about? I'm like, wait, am I mumbling, guys? Okay, yeah. So I think it's good for me not to do Sermon in the Sky because I haven't prepared anything and I'm so exhausted right now. It was a crazy day, but I will see if I can make it up for the Friday podcast. All right. So very sorry, guys, that I am not doing a Sermons in the Sky, but I hope you guys have enjoyed today's podcast. If you have any questions or anything you want to add, leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you guys think about this. And if there's anything else you want to like me to talk about for the Friday podcast, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear that too. Thursday, I will be heading out early early in the morning, going to a bunch of sightseeing places and stuff like that too. So I hope you guys are okay with me mumbling right now. But I'm going to tell you guys, enjoy your Thursday. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the